Around 1,900 years ago, Egypt was living under Roman rule, but the culture of the Nile still held on to many traditions that had existed for thousands of years. Cleopatra had been gone for nearly 2 centuries, yet her image, especially her association with lion symbolism and the goddess Sekhmet, remained a powerful part of Egyptian religious identity. Even after the fall of the Ptolemies, temple art, religious rituals, and clothing styles preserved symbols queens like Cleopatra once wore. And deep inside Egypt's industrial districts, real workshops, hidden behind walls because of their heavy smells and noisy work, continued to manufacture ceremonial garments decorated with lion imagery. These were not outfits Cleopatra herself wore, but garments inspired by the same traditional iconography that appeared in temple reliefs of her reign. Archaeology shows us exactly how life looked in these industrial zones. Excavations at sites such as Karanis, Oxyrhynchus, Antinoopolis, Memphis, and other Roman period towns reveal clusters of buildings used as textile and leather workshops. The floors contain tanning pits, dyeing vats, scraping benches, loom weights, spindle whorls, and pottery jars once filled with pigment. Archaeologists found piles of linen scraps, leather shavings, broken tools, and ash from furnaces. These places were not open to the public. They were set apart from homes, surrounded by walls, because tanning hides produced strong and unpleasant smells. Workers entered early each morning, performing tasks we can reconstruct from papyrus documents, tools, and preserved textiles. Craftsmen in these workshops produced many things: sandals for soldiers, leather shields, linen tunics, wool cloaks, and ceremonial garments for temple use. Among temple items were clothes decorated with lion symbols, imagery closely tied to the goddess Sekhmet. Cleopatra, in her lifetime, had appeared in temple reliefs wearing lion-associated symbols, lion tail sashes, lion-related crowns, and solar discs. These were not costumes but religiously meaningful iconographic elements. In the Roman period, long after Cleopatra's death, Egyptians still used these motifs in religious processions and festivals. They did not make garments claiming to be from Cleopatra herself, but garments carrying the same religious symbols associated with queens who acted as living embodiments of goddesses. To understand how such a ceremonial garment was made, historians combine physical evidence and written sources. The process began with the most basic materials: animal hides, linen yarn, plant dyes, and minerals. Actual lion skins were extremely rare in Egypt by this time, so workshops used goatskin, sheepskin, or calfskin to imitate the look and texture of lion fur. Archaeologists have uncovered leatherworking tools such as scrapers, awls, bone polishers, and bronze needles that match descriptions in ancient texts. Hides were soaked in lime or natron solutions inside stone-lined pits. Workers scraped off hair and tissue using curved metal blades. After this, hides were softened using mixtures of oil, fat, and repeated stretching under the desert sun. These steps are confirmed by tannery waste dumps discovered at multiple Roman Egyptian sites. The garment's main body was linen, not leather. Linen was Egypt's signature textile for millennia. Excavated looms show us how linen threads were spun using spindle whorls made of clay or stone, and woven on upright wooden looms. Large pieces of linen fabric found in tombs and rubbish heaps match the sizes needed for tunics, cloaks, and ceremonial robes. For religious garments inspired by lion imagery, the linen was usually dyed yellow or gold. The dye materials are known from residue analysis: safflower for yellow, madder for red, indigo for blue, and mixtures of soot and iron for darker tones. Dye vats discovered in Antinoopolis and Karanis still contain pigment traces on their walls. Once the linen base was dyed, embroiderers, often women, according to papyrus employment records, added decorative elements. We see evidence of this artistic work in the famous mummy portraits of Fayum. These portraits show individuals wearing garments with embroidered medallions, gold thread borders, and symbolic motifs including animals, plants, and sun discs. The lion symbols used in temple garments were based on similar embroidery techniques. Artisans stitched stylized lion heads, sun discs linked to Sekhmet, lotus patterns, and geometric Greek-Egyptian border designs. Tiny beads, gold leaf pieces, and faience inlays were sometimes added for ceremonial garments, and archaeologists have found such beads and gold fragments in textile workshops and temple storerooms. To create the effect of a lion's mane, an important symbol in Sekhmet rituals, craftspeople used curled wool, fringed linen, and thin leather strips. Samples of such decorative wool curls have been found attached to Roman period textiles from Egypt. These materials were dyed in shades of yellow, brown, and gold, then stitched around collars, shoulders, or hemlines. The result was a garment that looked visually connected to lion imagery and the solar goddess traditions that Cleopatra's reign famously promoted. The workers who made these garments lived ordinary, busy lives. Excavated homes show clay ovens, bread molds, oil lamps, woven mats, pottery dishes, and storage jars. Papyrus tax records and wage lists reveal what workers earned, often payments in grain, dates, or small copper coins. A typical day for a textile or leather worker began at sunrise. They gathered materials from storerooms, heated dye vats over clay furnaces, scraped hides, spun linen, or operated large looms. By midday, they ate simple meals of bread, beans, lentils, figs, and water mixed with a little vinegar, known as pasca. In the afternoon, more meticulous work took place: embroidery, cutting fabric, dyeing delicate pieces, or assembling finished garments. Overseers recorded each worker's output on papyrus sheets, many of which have survived to this day through the dry desert climate. The people who eventually wore these lion-themed ceremonial garments were not queens or royalty. They were priestesses, temple performers, and elite Egyptian women participating in religious festivals. Papyrus documents from Tebtunis mention festival garments and animal pattern robes supplied to temples. These garments were used during processions, offerings, and rituals dedicated to deities such as Sekhmet, Isis, Hathor, and other goddesses linked to protection and kingship. The continuity of lion symbolism across centuries is well documented in temple reliefs and inscriptions, showing that Cleopatra's era did not end these traditions; they continued deep into the Roman period. Everything we know about these garments and the workshops that made them is supported by archaeology. Excavated dye vats confirm the pigments. Tanning pits confirm hide preparation methods. Leather tools and weaving looms confirm production processes. Mummy portraits show real embroidered designs. Papyrus records list workers, their wages, their materials, and temple contracts for special clothing. Temple art preserves the imagery of queens associated with lion symbolism, including Cleopatra at Dendera. None of these details come from imagination; they come from physical evidence and ancient documentation. Looking at the full picture, the story becomes clear. Even 1,900 years ago, long after Cleopatra's death, the cultural symbols she once embodied continued to influence Egyptian religious clothing. Craftsmen and craftswomen in Roman Egypt, ordinary people living in crowded workshop districts, continued producing garments decorated with lion imagery rooted in ancient tradition. These garments connected temples, festivals, and goddess worship to a much older memory of Egypt's queens and the divine power they represented. In these hidden workshops, surrounded by vats, looms, tools, and the constant scent of dyes and leather, workers preserved traditions older than Rome itself. They didn't work to recreate Cleopatra's wardrobe. They worked to maintain symbols that had existed in Egypt since long before her, but that her reign helped continue into the late ancient world. The lion-themed ceremonial garment was a product of real history, real craftsmanship, and real cultural continuity. Through these craftspeople, the memory of ancient Egypt's queens and goddesses lived far beyond the age of pharaohs.